Will Soledad O'Brien please come forward? You are a respected broadcast journalist, news anchor, documentarian, executive producer, and philanthropist who has become a fixture in global news. As a dedicated journalist, your work has been honored with numerous awards, including 2 Emmys. And as a humanitarian, your efforts have been recognized with honors such as the NAACP President's Award and the Goodermote Humanitarian Award. Your commitment to making a difference is reflected in your acclaimed documentaries, and in the creation of the Starfish Foundation, which is dedicated to providing hardworking young women with the resources necessary to succeed. For your selfless devotion to those less fortunate, and for your passion for reporting the truth, the State University of New York is proud to bestow upon you the honorary degree of Doctor of Letters.
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the State University Board of Trustees, the faculty of the State University of New York concurring, I confer upon you an honorary degree, honoris causa, and invest upon you with all the rights and privileges pertaining thereto. In token thereof, I direct that you be provided with the diploma and vested with the hood representative of the specific degree conferred.
Wow, what an incredible honor. Is it inappropriate if I make everybody call me Dr. Soledad now? You're cool with that, right? Excellent. Yeah, completely allowed. Thank you to the class of 2016. It's amazing to be part of your celebrations. Stony Brook has changed so much. I grew up pretty much on this campus. My dad was a professor here, and so in the 1960s and the 1970s, I spent a lot of time on the Stony Brook campus. And then, of course, I took classes here in the 1980s, so it has changed tremendously over the years. A stadium, for example, did not exist. It's a big day. Today you are surrounded by those who love you best, and really, I think it's fair to say, are responsible for getting you so far. Your parents and your grandparents, your siblings, your friends. It is because of them, because of their love, their support, their pushing at times, let's be real, because of their cash, that you are positioned now for the futures that you are facing. And if you'll allow me, I'd like to address the parents and the grandparents for just a moment. I know you are sitting over there and looking down on this sea of red. I know this feeling. I have 4 children. In New York City, we celebrate 4th grade graduation. So I have a sense of how you're feeling. Your baby is leaving the nest. They're off to their real life. But today, I'd like to lay your fears to rest. They are not really leaving you. And no, I'm not speaking metaphorically, like really, they're not leaving you. They're going to be home with their laundry and their friends and their stuff. They're not leaving between now and data would tell us age 40. They will be back approximately 3 times since then. For students, you might feel that you are at the end of an era, that today you say goodbye to a community that you've known and friends that you've had for years, saying goodbye to your university. And again, I'm going to lay your fears to rest. You're not. At Stony Brook U, have you heard of that? Are they already texting you, emailing you, trying to reach out to you on Twitter? There's a person in the alumni office right now who is literally licking 6,000 envelopes. Hey, just reaching out. Just want to keep in touch with that new address you've got. No matter what happens, they will send you a barrage of emails and requests. You're about to be alums. You have jobs. You have actual money that won't belong to your parents. And that means that you are potential donors. Those of you who go to work in finance, you will work 120 hours a week your first year. There will be a point where your own mom will not be able to reach you. She can't get you on the phone. The Alumni Association will reach out to you. They'll get you. Those of you who are going to do noble work in the Peace Corps, going to the remotest parts of the globe where they do not even have cell phone service, guess what? They will reach you in the alumni office. I know this to be true. Now, you know how this day is supposed to work. I'm the speaker, so I'll sit up here, I'll spout some brilliance for a little bit. I'm the only person standing between you and your degrees, frankly, so I should stand up here, spout a little bit of brilliance, and then you guys should nod, soak it all in, kind of blah, blah, blah. But I tend not to give advice, and I'll tell you why. Many years ago, I was asked by a woman's magazine if I could share with them the best advice I'd ever gotten from my mom. And I said, I think that is a terrible idea because my mom is an immigrant from Cuba, so she's kind of like the tough nut mom. She's not the warm and fuzzy mom. And they said, no, we want gems of motherly advice, which frankly she rarely gave. I said, let's not do that. And they said, no. What's the best advice your mother ever gave you? We'll do a full-page spread. Half of the page will be you and a photo of your mom hugging. And I said, okay. My mother's best advice was, most people are idiots. So, and it was. And so the editor of the magazine said, oh, well, let me get back to you. Click, never heard from her again. But it was the best advice. Because I think that many people will tell you and spend their lives telling you what you cannot do, what you should not do, what you'll never be able to accomplish. They'll tell you why your ideas will not work and why you will fail when you try to do something that you haven't done before. And my mother's point was, they're idiots and you shouldn't listen. And I think she might be in a position to know. My parents are both immigrants to this country. They met in 1958. My dad is white and Australian, and my mom is black and from Cuba. And they met because they both used to attend daily mass. My mom would walk, but my dad had a car, and he would drive, and he would basically hit on my mom and try to pick her up on the way to church. There's no way to clean that up. And so back then, of course, there were no power windows, so if you wanted to kind of hit on someone, you had to lean in, like wind down the window. Hey, would you like a ride? And every day she said, no, thank you, because you didn't take a ride from a man you didn't know, even if you were going to go sit next to him in church, apparently. Every single day, no, thank you, no, thank you. And then one day she said, yes, I would like to take a ride. And they made a date to go on a date. But that night, every single restaurant that they went to, because it was Baltimore in 1958, turned them away because my mom is black and my dad is white. And they would say to my father, you can come in. They'd say to my mother, you, absolutely not. And the two of you, no. And so eventually, after being turned away from restaurant after restaurant in Baltimore, Maryland, my mother brought my father back to her apartment and she whipped up an amazing meal of Cuban food. She's a fantastic cook. And she would tell this story to me and my sisters, not to talk about segregation and discrimination, but to say, girls, if you could cook, you could get a man. I'm a terrible cook. So I like to say, I can't make it, but I can make it happen. Dial it in. My parents decided that they would get married at the end of 1958 when interracial marriage was illegal in their state, Maryland, and in 16 other states. And they drove to Washington, D.C., and they got hitched, and then they drove back and lived in Baltimore illegally as a married couple. And their friends said, whatever you do, don't have children because biracial children will not fit in this world. I'm number 5 of 6. My parents were terrible listeners every single step of the way. And so from that, I've learned, don't listen to other people's take on the life you should lead. My parents were excellent role models in just not listening. So I won't give you any advice today, but I might share a little bit about what I've seen. By not listening, you can figure out what your heart is telling you to do. When I was an undergraduate studying English and American literature and pre-med science, I suddenly realized that I didn't have the passion for that. And I thought maybe telling stories might be my passion. And so I switched and I started working at a local TV station. Kind of worked out. Now I travel the globe reporting stories. Not taking advice means you might break some boundaries, those walls that exist that make us feel like we're different from other people we meet. Not taking advice means you'll stop looking for meaning in things that have no meaning. Listen, some relationships are not meant to be. Delete the phone number from your phone and move on, seriously. Bad things sometimes happen, and they will continue to happen until good people get in the way. I have seen this time and time again in every single story that I have reported. So be that good person. Decide what you want to be, and I am not talking about your job. I'm talking about the kind of person you want to be. It's up to you and no one else. People can be mean and unfair, but far, far more people are good, and they're generous, and they're helpful, and they're hopeful. And that means you're going to have to lead with an open heart, and that also means that open heart is probably going to get stomped on a few more times than you would like. But if you go where your passion and your heart takes you, I guarantee you, you will have incredible experiences. I have. Lean in, as Sheryl Sandberg likes to advise, and I think that's not just a strategy for women in business early in their careers. I think it's advice for everyone. But I would add, lean in and use your voice, and lean in and make change where it needs to be made, and lean in and invest your heart and your soul in ideas and in people maybe others don't care for at all, or maybe they don't even see the value in them. Because leaning back when you're young is just another word for cynicism. And that's not clever when you've been given all these advantages that you have clearly been given because you are sitting here today. Use your power as a millennial to lean in and make change where you are. You know, today in the workforce, millennials just confuse older people. I was at this conference, truly. I was at this conference, everybody was sitting around trying to figure out how do we retain our millennials? How do we make sure they don't just quit their jobs? And they were talking about some of the youngest employees coming together around a policy, workplace policy, and millennials felt that the parental leave policy should be available to all new parents, not just women in this particular company. And so really, within weeks, the corporate policy that had been in place for decades was changed. That differs a lot from how my first boss at WBZ TV in Boston, who I should name, who really deserves it, but I won't, he told us and others who were my age when we were starting out, he used to say, there is a 747 flying over this building right now full of people who would love to take your job, so suck it up. Charming, right? But that's not how we view millennials today in the workforce. It means you have power to make change that impacts real people, and it is not a responsibility to take lightly. In 1958, my mom and dad were living as a married couple in Baltimore, Maryland, and my mother used to tell me the story of how people would spit on them as they walked down the streets together with my older sisters. And I said, oh my God, what did you do? And she said, Lovey, she calls me Lovey, we knew America was better than that, and we knew we could be part of making it better. That was what it was about. My dad was one of the very first professors here at SUNY Stony Brook, where I played as a child. We came to Mass here every single Sunday, my whole family. And it wasn't until I was much older that my father told me the story of trying to buy a house near here. I grew up in St. James in the early 1960s, and no one would sell him a home because his wife was black. So eventually, one man, Bill Huntington, who owned some land about 2 towns over, offered to partition a piece of his land. And my parents were able to build a home, and that's where I would grow up. America is better than that. We have opportunities every day, big and small, to push for change. Be part of that change. Look around today. Things do change. But you cannot stand idly by. As wrongs are done, you must stand for what is right and what is fair. And you must stand for what America stands for, which is opportunity for everyone. My mother and father knew that someone spitting on them to knock them off their goals would never happen. They knew that if you were knocked off your path, anytime someone spit on you, whether it was metaphorical or literal, then you might not get to where you were trying to go. Because she had a dream, which was the American dream, that she would realize coming out of poverty in Cuba, that all of her children would graduate from college and that all her grandchildren would be in college. For my father, his dream was to come here and educating students here and using education to change lives here. So please, as my mother would advise you, if she were here today, don't listen to idiots. Figure out your dreams and be brave enough to go and live them. Otherwise, someone's going to hire you to help them fulfill their dream. And that doesn't sound quite as fulfilling, does it? Today you begin new and amazing things, and you also begin a lot of mundane crap too. Seriously, there is a value in learning how to work a fax machine, I'm telling you, and taking coffee orders without screwing them up. It is worth something. I spent my first year out of college answering phones and removing staples from a wall. We often describe finding our passion as a bolt of lightning, but I found my passion was actually more like a slog. The path to passion is really a daily step of trying and then sometimes failing, of reaching goals and deciding that that wasn't the right goal anyway. It is not a thunderclap. It is a slow, chip away at it process. I got my toe in the door of morning news and discovered many things that I hated to do and a couple of things that I'd like to do. I got good at taking coffee orders, figured out which reporters would be helpful to me. I did overnight shifts till I could knock out a 30-second story about an overnight fire in my sleep. I got a local TV reporting gig and did live shots holding a big giant fish. Yes, I swear, I wish it weren't true, but I did it. I did a compelling interview once with a cat that people believed was reincarnated from someone's roommate. My husband charitably said, "I didn't think it was your best work." I stood on the Bay Bridge in San Francisco in a windstorm telling people, do not stand on the Bay Bridge in San Francisco in a windstorm because it is dangerous. And in doing often cliched, lame, stupid, low-level stuff, I learned about a whole world that I never knew about, which was reporting, and reporting on actual people and their actual struggles and systems that often failed them. And their stories would keep me up at night, and I couldn't just tell them and go. I wanted to stay and connect the dots and highlight those people whose work was effective. And I discovered about 15 years later that I had a passion, which was leveraging the power of a microphone to build attention to an undercovered story. And then is when I discovered my dream. It took time. It was a slog. And my biggest strength, frankly, was I just didn't stop. And what I've seen in my career, whether covering tsunamis in Asia or Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans or earthquakes in Haiti, is that we all kind of want the same thing. We're much more alike than we're different. You need to break through walls that you think exist between people who don't look like you and don't act like you, because those walls don't have to exist. You need to seek to understand why people do what they do and why they act like they do, and seek to know people where they are. You don't always have to agree. But having conversations, I think, is the only way to bridge the distance in understanding each other. And not taking advice means you can choose to stand up for people who need your voice. And you'll have this chance, unfortunately, every single day to say, this is not okay. Or you can choose to walk by and avert your eyes whenever you see an injustice, big or small. So be that person who stops, and at the risk of not voicing a popular opinion, say, this is not okay. This is not okay. America is better than this. You have some of the best education money can buy, frankly, and I think that means that you have an obligation, because not everybody got the chance that you got. And it's an obligation to use the power that you've been given to help others who have not been so fortunate, to use your voice in defense of those who cannot speak for themselves, to use your access and influence to advocate for other people. Finally, I would say, don't let people kill your joy, and don't let them kill anybody else's dream either. You will find them. They will stick to your shoe like gum. And so I would tell you, starting today, remove people from your life who make you feel bad about who you are and what you would like to do one day. Block them on Twitter, unfriend them on Facebook. Don't let them steal your joy. You have your lives ahead of you to do well and do good in this world, and to be great and be good to others, and to find greatness and to seek out goodness in people, because it is all around us. Graduation is a day of big questions. What do you want to be? What do you want to stand for? When are you moving all your stuff out of your parents' house? But superseding all of them truly is, what do you care about? What do you care about? You have been positioned, class of 2016, to do great things, but do them in service of others. And I think you will discover that selflessness ultimately is the thing that makes you great. Congratulations and good luck, graduates.